Welcome back to Cinema Flicks Music Picks. I'm Davey, your host with the most, the beast with the least. What we can do today is continue on with the album series, looking at the albums that were in the year that was, 2022. You know the drill by now. Joint number 6, because they're all joint 6 until we get to the top 5, is Welcome to Club 13 by the DBTs, Drive-By Truckers. There you go. Latest by them. In 2020, they had 2 albums out, which rather a feat in 2020. Very political albums. The first one more focusing on the political side, the second on the pandemic side. So it was The Unravelling, and then followed up later in the year by The New OK, which is very prescient. You didn't hear that phrase, or The New Normal, quite as much in 2020, but it felt like 2021 you never stopped hearing them. We need to go back to, we need to find a new normal. So the DBTs were very much on the ball in terms of the politics and how it affected the world, and the pandemic affected everything else, and the response to that, and all kind of fed into a vicious cycle, which has led some critics to say this is somewhat of a step down, or it's not as, gosh, what was one of them? Was it Pitchfork or something? Said something like it's not as ambitious. And you think, Christ, do you want them to just do the same album over and over? Right, first of all, that wasn't their only political records. The way back in 2016's album, and they've always had tracks here and there that are overtly political. I don't get that as a criticism. They have to make the music that they feel at the time. And I think that after doing bloody hell 2 of those albums in 1 year, which were great albums, fantastic albums, both of them in 2020. In fact, they've never made a bad album, but those particularly were great. The best they've done since the mid-2000s for my money. For them to then say, maybe we can give ourselves a little bit of a break and do something a little bit more personal in the next one. That's what the world's done. We've all kind of tried to put the pandemic and politics to one side to give ourselves a bloody break and think about what our lives are like and what's happened, and evaluate things. And that's what this really is. It's a record of reflection and telling old stories, and Welcome to Club 13 kind of sums it up, because that is a club that they played in their very early incarnation, called Club 13, and the title track itself is, first of all, it's a real cool boogie stomper, but it's literally about the awful cover bands, and think the Blues Brothers bar where they have to start with the cage to stop the glass getting through and everything. Think that kind of thing. Okay, and I think we're halfway there to what Club 13 might have been like. I mean, this will give you an idea with the artwork and what's happening at Club 13. I don't think this guy's getting up an hour. As always, very distinctive artwork. And there's the inside of the club itself. That great gatefold, as always. Their artwork is just sublime. But again, like I've been saying in just about all these videos, would mean nothing without the music. And what music they make, if I can quote Bela Lugosi. The Driver kicks us off with a heavy, even by their standards, a heavy track, and it is a more introverted album in general, and The Driver kicks that off with a more personal look and a more reflective look and a more just me, my life, and the things I've seen and thought about the things around me, rather than State of the Union address. So The Driver is ferocious, heavy, moody. It's got that real ragged glory feel about it. Fantastic stuff. And Mike, that's Patterson. Patterson does, of the 9 tracks here, Patterson does 7. Mike does 2. But Mike's 2 are fantastic, so don't let that sound as if he's not on, he's just not got a game at the moment. Mike's track Maria's Awful Disclosure, based on a 19th century nun, phenomenal stuff. The writing on the lyrics on it, they've always been a great lyrical band, but they just keep getting better, as they should. I don't understand this concept. The bands can get worse as they get older. Surely practice makes perfect. Shaken Pine is, gosh, Neil Young could have done that. It builds up. It's got great crescendos. It's not all one note. It really has peaks and valleys and some beautiful stuff followed by some, well, that's quite dark. And then anyone who saw my review of Margo Price's new album, Strays, I love that woman so much. She's on here, in the wonderful track Forged in Hell and Heaven Sent, and that's got a very, it's kind of fuzzed out guitars, but it still has that, with her and Patterson doing almost a Emmylou and Graham Parsons from the two Graham Parsons solo albums before he passed away. It's got that kind of feel, but with the kind of heavier fuzzed out guitars, but not losing the dynamic of a male female doing it almost kind of countryish duet. So think Graham Parsons, Emmylou Harris, cosmic country transported through the South in 2022, and you're kind of halfway there to how cool that track is. And again, Margo Price, phenomenal, what a talent. Billy Ringo in the Dark is Mike's other track on this, Mike Cooley, and it's one of those beautiful songs the DBTs have ever made for my money. Just absolutely stunning. It's about an imaginary friend. Just stunning stuff. It's kind of it's difficult to describe without making it sound silly, but the Billy Ringo imaginary friend is, you know, obviously telling things to your imaginary friend, but it's actually just telling it to yourself, kind of thing. And it's a real journey of self-discovery, and that's what a lot of this album is. And the Closer Wilder Days is easily the quietest track in the album, the most simple, the most sparse, the most delicate, but it's a whole album of reflection. Yeah, there's a couple of political tinges here and there if you want to read into it that way, but there's nothing too overt. So it really is this has been a hell of a few years for us and for the world. Let's just see what that's done to us and rate about that. That's what this album is. So unlike a lot of albums that came out in 2022, it's not a pandemic album. It's not this is our first since the pandemic, so we're going to talk about it. The DBTs were in the middle of it talking about it, unlike most. So this is more of a, no, I think it's time that we give some time to ourselves and we work on ourselves and try and, you know, get things out. Again, a long night's journey into dark. There's some really heavy, ferocious guitar on here. There's some gorgeous slide playing as always. There's going to be no major musical surprises for anyone who knows the Drive-By Truckers, but also there's going to be 9 new tracks of Drive-By Truckers, so what a gift. Every time they bring out a new album, it's like, I don't even need to worry if this is going to be good or not. It's just going to be fun. It's either going to be really good or fun, fantastic. There's never a middle ground with the Drive-By Truckers. There's never one didn't really do it for me. They've never released an album that I don't consider good. Never. And this year, excitingly, for the first time, in the liner notes of the booklet, Patterson does a wonderful introduction. It's terrific, and he really talks about the inspiration for the album and whatnot. It's been very informative, and had this Patterson there. And I want to give a shout out and dedicate this whole video to my good buddy Dave Coughlin. Dave took these photos, and he's thanked in the booklet for doing so. But Patterson's liner notes end with, "We can't wait," so he goes on, "and we can't wait to play this album for you when we come to your town. Welcome to Club 13, classy." He did come to my town. I got to see them last June, was it? They came to Glasgow, and a venue I'd never been at before, and it was brilliant. It was absolutely fantastic. It was small and intimate, but raucous, and the beer was flying. Nobody came out of it looking like that poor fella, but it's Glasgow, so Sometimes people just look like that anyway. It's usually an overdose. But yeah, phenomenal record. I can't recommend it high enough. This is one of those ones I'm not going to go on any longer than the 10 minutes I've done, because I'm probably preaching to the choir. It's probably just bias confirmation. But yeah, if you like just great rock and roll, tinged with a little bit of, obviously they're always tinged with a little bit of that southern soul that comes from literally Muscle Shoals, if you know Patterson's background, touched with country and touched with just that vague notion of Americana. They're just one of the bands of the 21st century for me, and anything they do, they could do an album of Spice Girls covers, I will buy it. In fact, I would definitely buy that. I'd buy 2 copies of that. That'd be really interesting. Patterson, Mike, get on it. Anyway, thanks very much for your attention, if you made it this far. As always, stay very safe out there. And love and mercy.